everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellowshow. Tonight, it's your Wednesday night basketball show here. We got John Heffernon joining us tonight. We couldn't be joined by Drake, but hey, we get double the airtime with John, so more John words is a good thing. So, John, how you doing, man? Happy Wednesday.
Hey, doing well, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. We have we were talking off the air. This is like the first night where I had to have guys sit on my bench that are playing. There's a lot of games, a lot of action tonight, so I'm excited to get to watch some of the games tonight. But we did want to lead off the show with, I think one of the more important pieces was the Colin Sexton injury with the torn meniscus, his left knee. We were just looking it up. It says rough recovery time of 6 to 8 weeks, which would put him back maybe sometime in January, February at the latest. So I would plan to be without Sexton for the next 2 months. But I thought it might be fun for us to look at the Cleveland Cavs roster and just kind of figure out who's, probably Ricky Rubio is the biggest benefactor, but there might be some other ripple effects. So let's just open up the Cleveland roster here. And I guess if you want to break this down, I think, again, it's Ricky Rubio, who's only 41% rostered. He is a pretty important player at the moment right now for these guys, but Darius Garland's going to step up too. But man, Ricky Rubio had a career high 37 the other night here. So he's playing well. Do you see anything else, or how would you break down the absence of Colin Sexton for this team?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty, light team when it comes to guards. We really only see Garland, Sexton, and Rubio up there, and everyone else on this list is forwards, centers, whatever. So, mostly bigs. I mean, this is a big, heavy team. So, obviously a big potential bump to Garland, to your point, probably the biggest bump to Rubio. To be fair to Ricky, he was playing pretty well before the injury. I mean, he's rostered in less leagues than he should be. He should he's probably should absolutely be rostered in just about every league now, given this injury. This is a team that I don't know if they have a solution on the roster. I see some names real far down there, but I don't actually know if they're legitimately on the roster, like Dellavedova and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't think he's played in an NBA game in a couple of years. So you might even want to pay attention to see if they try to add someone in free agency. I'm not exactly sure who their two-way players are. Potentially they have a two-way player who they can bring in, that's a guard. So maybe they'll make a move, but otherwise, if Rubio's available, he's a must-add. He's probably the waiver add of the week, maybe even the month now.
And I just want to pop in because, there's a handful of guys that are listed as out. Laurie Markkanen, he's ruled out for tonight's game. He's got the health and safety protocols and stuff right now. So he's missed the last few games. He's going to come back here. So I don't know if they go a little bit bigger. They've been a two guard heavy team with Sexton and Garland and Rubio. So we'll see if they get a little bit, taller lineups here. And then Kevin Love is listed as out right now. He's also in the health and safety protocols here. So and soon the Cavaliers, who are playing well right now, despite all of these players being out, we're probably going to see the Cavs at full strength here soon. So Markkanen, probably a guy only 41% rostered. He's worth an ad. And then when Kevin Love was playing, he was averaging 22.9 points per game. So fun team here. We'll see if Ricky Rubio can keep the Cavs on pace. As right now they're the 5 seed in the East here. So I guess in the past we've kind of gone over the standings here. I don't know if we want to take a break from that this week and pick it up next week, but just anything in the East concern you or stick out or impress you?
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned, the Cavs are a good call out. They're definitely, kind of punching above where I thought their weight class would be so far this season. Especially because they are a big heavy roster. They're starting Markkanen they're pretty much starting Markkanen at small forward when they're fully healthy. So it's a very, very, very big roster. Just kind of surprising to see them perform so well. I think the Sexton thing could be a big thorn in the side though. So we'll see if they can continue to keep it up, stay above 500 going forward for these next 6-8 weeks, whatever. Wizards continue to impress me. Watched them kind of beat down the Bucks a couple days ago. Maybe not beat them down, but beat them. That was a tough game to watch. Bucks are not fully healthy, obviously, but and then I think that always I can segue into the Bucks. I think the Bucks, under 500 at this point in the season, the worst Budenholzer has done as a coach of the Bucks through 10 games, through 11 games this season. He's never been under 500 at this point, so. Bucks are kind of surprising, but if you're following the team like you and I are, Kyle, it's not shocking given all of the people who have been out for so many of the games they've played. I definitely expect the Bucks to rise up the standings. They might not, catch Miami, Chicago, Philly, but Brooklyn, whatever. But I think they'll definitely be in that 3, 4, 5 seed mix when it's all said and done. The Hawks also seem to be kind of underperforming, but I don't know. I never was a big Hawks guy, so I'm not super shocked about that either. Overall, I think, at this point in the season, things make good sense. And I think, talk to us in a month and this was going to look much more natural. So
I want to point out one weird number the Bucks are playing fine despite all their injuries and stuff right now. But the number that I am noticing is the 1-4 record at home. That is an interesting stat for me. I don't care all the injuries and stuff. You would think 1-4 at home. That's kind of weird. So that'll change. Bucks will be just fine. But I guess since we haven't talked basketball in a week, what games have you watched? Just thoughts from. I know you probably watched the majority of the Bucks games, but any other teams or games that you were able to catch and enlighten us on?
Yeah, no, I unfortunately mostly watching Bucks. I've seen more Bulls earlier in the season than I have lately. I haven't seen the Bulls lose a game yet, so I still think they're amazing. They obviously are amazing, but I think teams are starting to slowly figure them out. On the eastern side, I don't have much to report on. I will say one other thing that is interesting about the East. I think it's the deepest it's been since I can remember. There's really only 2 bad teams, the Pistons and the Magic, and everyone else seems like they're actually trying to go for a playoff spot, and they actually could pull it off. So I think this is the deepest the East has been. For as long as I can remember, I'm sure I'm missing some key years there, but this is a really deep Eastern Conference, and that's typically not the case. Usually you say that about the West.
And I've been able to stay up late and catch any West games.
I've seen a little bit of the Clippers. I've seen a little bit of the Blazers, and I've seen a little bit of the Wolves. I feel like I've seen almost no Lakers games this year, which is very unusual for me because that's a team I try to catch. But yeah, I've seen some of those teams. Lillard has been very underwhelming, but I also feel like he's just kind of, he's one of those guys where it's like it's an 82 game season. The regular season is, obviously they need to, get into good seeding in the playoffs, but you can just tell he's feeling it out. I'm not too concerned about Lillard. I continue to think he's a great buy low candidate. If there's anyone, if the Lillard holder or the Lillard owner in your fantasy league is, not impressed with his performance so far, definitely think that's a guy you could probably buy low on right now. Yeah.
And then I just switched my screen to view here. Maybe we'll just kind of look at it this way too. We haven't really just looked at the NBA, like the top guys as a whole here. So what I did is I just filtered by all players the last 7 days, and I'm going to hit by average points per game here. Jokic and Giannis here at the top of the list, but D'Angelo Russell peeking in here at number 3, Curry, Durant, Dejounte Murray, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, finally hitting his stride that we saw from the playoffs. Jarrett Allen creeping up in here towards the top 10. There's LaMelo. I guess some of these names on this screen, what comes to mind here as we look at the top players of the last 7 days?
Yeah, well, I think I know I own Russell, so I know he missed, I think, just 1 game, maybe 2 during that time. So he might be a little skewed by, it's just the 1 game sample there, but still a pretty spicy game. Curry has been incendiary. I have not actually watched Curry, but he's just been.
The other night, the 50-pointer.
An 80-point fantasy performance.
That might be the high of the year so far for fantasy.
A name that I'm surprised I don't see up here is Andre Drummond because Embiid has been out in the health and safety protocols. I'm sure if you keep scrolling, we might find Drummond pretty soon here.
So he's only missed 2 games so far. So we'll look for Drummond in a sec. But Justin in the chat room did say Drummond has been a beast. And where is our man Drummond?
And maybe there's one, maybe that the first game falls that there's a game that Embiid played that falls in the window of the 7 days. So maybe that's dragging down his average. But I know for a fact the 2 games Embiid has missed, Drummond has averaged, like around 15 points and damn near 20 rebounds in those 2 games. So he's balling out right now.
Let me go back to it.
Yeah, no, you're good either way. But Allen, I think Jared Allen is the biggest surprise here. It's not surprising that he's putting up good numbers, but it's just he's just kind of been doing this all season. So he's really interesting to me. If there are big guys that are missing for the Cavs, that only helps him.
Look at the numbers from the last 4 games.
Yeah.
So massive double-doubles. The lowest rebound total is 15 in there. He's got a couple 24-point performances, some blocks in there too. So Jared Allen, man. He's the name that of all those guys maybe doesn't belong, maybe he's earning the right to belong, right now. So I'm impressed that Miles Turner's up this high. He's been having a good season. He's been getting more. I think he's been kind of inconsistent. That's been his knock for the majority of his career here. But he's really the last about 5 games for him. He's kind of picked up this consistency where you see 52, 28. But 56, 39, and 43, if he can kind of stay in that 43 to 56 range, you're looking at a really fun player here. And he's the 6th ranked center right now. I still haven't been able to catch much of the Spurs this season, but I'm curious to watch Turner and Sabonis work together.
Yeah, absolutely. You just mentioned the Spurs. I know you're a big Deontay Murray guy. Maybe you could give us your point of view on him quick, because I see he's in the top 5, top 6 there, hanging out with the giants of the game and D'Angelo Russell, who's played 1 game. So what's going on with Deontay?
He's a guy that I was able to keep from last year, and just watching him play on a team that had I can't remember his name, the shooting guard over there. He's in Chicago now, I believe. But DeJounte's he's a really smart player. He's a triple-double threat almost any night here. You can kind of see he did have a triple-double back in October here, but high rebound totals, high assist totals. He's just a guy that does everything, and he's a really smart defensive player. You see every game he gets at least 1 steal, and he's been on this nice run of blocks lately. So he's just all over the court. He's really fun to watch. If you put the Spurs on, you're going to see DeJounte do something pretty much almost any time up and down the court. He'll do something exciting. And the games where why can't I remember the shooting guard? DeRozan. Yeah, DeMar DeRozan kind of blocked his scoring from last year. So now you're seeing DeJounte get more shot attempts, more everything. And the offense kind of runs through him. So you see when he scores, anywhere above 20 fantasy points, that's when you're going to start getting these 50s, these high 48s, these 68s. So he's looking at the moment right now. I know the Spurs are not a great team record-wise, but he's kind of playing like an all-star right now. So I'm pretty excited about DeJounte, and I don't know. He's the 4th ranked point guard right now. I think a lot of people were probably drafting him maybe in the 3rd or the 4th round. I got him as my keeper, so I'm pretty excited about him. And he might be like the only reason to watch a Spurs game right now, but it's fun to watch. He's just a do everything player, and he's having his breakout season. So a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Today.
People talk about assist to turnover ratio. I've got on my soapbox and started yelling at you about that in the off season and through our messenger group chat sometimes. But an interesting thing about DeJounte Murray is his steal to turnover ratio is basically 1 over the past couple of games. He's averaging. I noticed there was a couple games where he had 3 steals like each game, and then like 3 or 2 turnovers in each of those games. That's just. To be a point guard, to be assisting and scoring as much as he is, obviously the ball is in his hands all the time. And for his turnover numbers to be that low, I'm sure it looks like, based on what I just saw in the 10-game sample or whatever that was on the screen, he's averaging somewhere around 2 turnovers a game right now, 2.5 maybe. That's super, super low. If you don't, conversely, maybe go take a peek at Russell Westbrook. If you, there you go,
2.2 steals and 2. Basically, they are equal. And you factor in the assist total.
Yeah,
he's averaging 17.6 points per game, about 8 boards and 8 assists. So this is This is high efficiency here from Dejounte. It's a lot of fun.
This guy is probably, if you have him this guy is probably 5 times more valuable in a categories league too. I mean, how many? There's not a lot of dudes on the planet right now. He might be the only person on the planet averaging over 15, 8, and 2. So,
so like when you go do like an NBA prop bet and they say over under his points, rebounds, and assists. I mean, technically his number here is at with 16 and 16 rebounds and assists plus the 17 there. So he's flirting with almost 34, 35 over under for his stats each night. So that's a lot of fun. Just a really smart player, and he's been probably one of the staples of my fantasy team so far this year. But I don't know. Let's go down the list a little bit. Let's see if we can find any more gems. I did want to shout out. So a couple of these guys that I added to the watch list, these guys are lower owned. And Will Barton, I don't know. Again, we kind of talked about Denver loosely last week, but Will Barton averaging 42.4 points per game over the last couple of days here. He's had a run of 3 really amazing games, and you're seeing his minutes spike here up to 35, 37, and 40. A couple 25-point, 26-point games. He's a rebound assist. He'll get the steals. He's just kind of a do-everything player as well. And he's only 56.4% rostered. So if you play in 10-man leagues, there's a small chance he's available. I just wanted to shout him out. But as we get to some of these second-tier guys, anything stick out to you? I know a lot of these people are 99, some percent rostered here. But I thought Wendell Carter Jr. was worth mentioning. Scottie Barnes continues to play really well, so I'll just give you the floor. What names do you want to shout out here?
Yeah, well, I think originally this season Miles Bridges would have been a shock to be here, but he's very much earned his right. I still think he's very much on the fast track to most improved player of the year. So this is, it's not surprising to see him up here, but I think, maybe if you haven't tuned into the show, in the early part of the season here, it's worth at least calling him out. Bridges is absolutely going off this season.
Is he always an efficient scorer like this? I mean, he's averaging 22 points per game on the year. I haven't remembered much of his stats in the past, but has he always been a high scorer?
I think he's had flashes, right? A 30-point game here, a 30-point game there, 25 points here and there too. But I think, this year the consistency that he's doing it with is, compared to what he was doing in the past, unreal. And kind of, the reason why I'm saying he's a runaway for most improved player of the year. He's, if we can look at previous seasons, and it's not like he was a bad scorer in the past. It's just, I think it was inconsistency, right? He wasn't maybe not as comfortable. The jump shot wasn't. I mean, look at these field goal percentages too. He's taking. He was shooting better last year, but the volume was so much lower. I wouldn't say he's an exceptionally efficient scorer right now. But he's getting more shots. He's getting them much more naturally in the flow of the offense. I have to admit, I haven't watched a ton of Hornets games, but the ones I have seen have been very impressed. And their offensive rating as a team is super high. For a while, they were kind of competing with Memphis for the number 1 spot. I think they've dropped down a little bit since then. But LaMelo Ball, I think, makes his life so much easier. So as LaMelo develops, I think Miles Bridges and his scoring potential continues to increase. I don't know if he's going to take another big jump in scoring next season. 22 points a game is already a hell of an impressive stat line. But and that's he's definitely arrived, if you will.
His previous career high was 13 in his 4th season here. So he just added almost 50% of the scoring there. He's at a career high for rebounds per game, career high for assists. Blocks are kind of what he did last year, but steals, he's doubling his kind of career average here in steals. Probably shooting a few too many threes there. You see his, I guess he's always been kind of around 32, 33. He had a spike here of 40% last year. So he's playing well. I think just 7.7 threes per game. Probably need to trim that down to maybe 5 or 6. But so far through 12 games, I think you're spot on with the probably the clear cut. Deontay Murray was already pretty good last year, but as far as just a significant increase in all these stats here, I think you're right with probably most improved player.
Murray deserves to at least be in the conversation, right? Because he's going to be an all-star this year. I mean, unless something weird happens to his stat line over the next couple months. But Murray deserves to be in the conversation. I just think Bridges has made the biggest jump of anyone I'm paying any attention to.
Yep, totally agree. But maybe let's
another guy I want to call out is Cole Anthony. And maybe not necessarily, he's obviously balling out fantasy-wise, but this guy's just like a really fun human being. He's super high energy, super engaging. I think this the stat line right now. So he's looks like about 40 points a game over the past 7 days.
Yep.
But as you can tell within here, you see some kind of high 20s, mid 30s, and then you see a couple kabooms, some 50s, and goodness gracious, a 60.
Yeah.
This is what I would expect from a guy like Cole Anthony. And if you see him potentially, have a couple stinkers in a row, this guy might be a really interesting buy low candidate. He definitely has some really cool upside. I just think he's going to be kind of inconsistent. So, pay attention to the owner in your league who has Cole Anthony if they don't have an appetite for that kind of inconsistency. And he has like 3 or 4, 20-pointers in a row. Maybe you can poach him, potentially. So he's a guy that I think, will continue to randomly pop off for a 50 or 60-point fantasy day, as the season goes on. Not every week, but certainly enough to keep people happy.
And he fits that fellowship mold of a young ascending player on a shitty team that's just going to get a ton of minutes. So we eat that up. We love Cole Anthony here. But let's kind of get to the bottom of the list. I did want to shout out. This is always a Milwaukee Bucks and a Cleveland Cavaliers show, but Bobby P is back. Bobby P has put up 2 40 bangers the last 2 games here. He's playing big minutes with Lopez still out of here. 35 and 31 minutes, 2 double-doubles in a row, stacking 2 blocks for the last 3 games here. So Bobby P, man, less than 24% rostered. If you play in an 8-man league, if you play in a 10 or a 12-man league, he probably needs to be rostered for sure here. So it's nice to see Bobby back as the Bucks get healthier. Maybe the minutes and stuff come down, but continue to go ahead, Bobby. Enjoy it while you got it for now. Do we know what's up with Brook Lopez yet?
It's a lower back thing. I think they are being very cautious with him given his age.
Yep.
But I don't expect it to be too terribly serious now. They're also maybe not, maybe they're withholding certain information from, rabid Bucks fans like you and me. So maybe we don't know the whole story, but I'm not too concerned, but I also don't expect him back tomorrow. I think they're going to be very cautious. Especially as long as they have Bobby and Giannis healthy, they can kind of, it hurts. Giannis is working his ass off, playing center for most of these games, but they can kind of get away with it. But yes, I good call out on Bobby Potus. I don't know if you saw they went to the White House this past week because of their championship last year, and I saw some tweets saying Bobby Potus, and I think Bobby himself even tweeted one of those. So that's my new nickname for Bobby, who we just adore so much.
Fantastic. And then since right below Bobby Portis, there's this fella named Tyrese Maxey, and he just so happens to be pitching in 37 points per game the last 7 days on your team here. So I'm going to give you the floor. Can you whisper us some sweet somethings about Tyrese Maxey here for the Sixers?
Yeah, well, Maxey, I mean, I'm also the Ben Simmons owner in our league. I don't know what the heck I was thinking there, but, I try to galaxy brain some things sometimes. But luckily, I was able to snag Maxey, and he's less than 50% rostered. So, 10-team leagues or less, if he's available, especially until or if Simmons comes back, this guy's got super high value right now. He had 17 points in the first quarter against the Bucks last night. I mean, I love rooting for my players, but he nearly gave me a heart attack. I thought they were gonna beat us just on his back alone. But he's got some really interesting, high scoring upside, especially if the team is missing some of their pieces. But he's even had some decent scoring games, with Simmons and with with Embiid and with Tobias Harris in the roster. And then, as you can see, his assist numbers are much better, a little inconsistent too, but I think they're better typically when he plays with his better players. So
check out his steals to turnover ratio the last 4 games.
Yeah, our new this is the new stat. We're coming up with we have a new stat. It's a new advanced stats, steal to turnover ratio, and it is incredibly sexy for fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's great. I actually, I don't know if I don't think I've noticed his super low turnover count. And the last two games he's played for sure, the last two games, and maybe even a few before. But he's definitely been playing without Embiid, without Harris, without their main pieces. So he's got the ball in his hands the whole game, and he needs to make things happen. And he's not turning the ball over. It's very comparable to Deontay Murray in that regard. Like, the fact that you can basically control the ball the entire game and you're not giving it away, that increases the likelihood your coach is going to trust you and keep you on the floor, increases the likelihood your coach is going to trust you and keep the ball in your hands. And those are amazing things for fantasy purposes. So Maxey I could go on and on, but if he's available in your league and Ben Simmons is not playing, he is a must roster guy right now.
So what's really impressive to me, so this is a 12-game game log that we're looking at here. If you look at his last 5 games, he has minutes of 39, 39, 44, 45, and 37. Out of this 12-game sample, those are the 5 highest minutes that he's gotten. In this, and then you look at the turnovers. He's only had 2 turnovers over that span. So he's playing more minutes, getting less turnovers. And you look at the bottom of this game log here where he's getting less minutes, but he's got more turnovers. So this is a guy that's starting to play some of his best basketball. And like you mentioned, no Embiid, a couple other guys missing some players here and there. But Maxey, this is, again, we probably don't think Ben Simmons is ever going to play for the Sixers anytime soon, at least not this year. Who knows? We'll see. So you're looking at a guy here who, at the moment, averaging 29.7 points per game with our scoring format here, 44% rostered, man. Go ahead and get him. So he's definitely wanted a shout out for him. And then Jalen Brunson, man, he's been a very productive backup point guard here for Dallas. He tripped my sensors here when I filtered by the last 7 days. And just the last 7 days, he's been averaging 20 points per game. He did have a nice little peak here of 31 points, but he also poured in 25. Just really steady here. You see 31 points, almost 27, 51, 34. Again, he's peaking in minutes the last 4 games here. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Jalen Brunson real quick, but I just wanted to shout out 26% rostered here, and he's just been on a bender the last 4 games.
I have not watched the Mavericks play a single minute of basketball this year, which is unfortunate because I'm such a big Luka stan. But I do know Luka's stats have actually been less than you would expect, at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. And the Mavericks are winning games. Mm-hmm. And I think, just looking at the numbers, I don't have a lot of, eye tests to back this up. I haven't watched the film. I haven't watched the games. But I would imagine Brunson is a big piece of that puzzle, why the Mavericks are winning games. Luka Doncic is, not balling out like we expect him to. I'm sure. I think Luka's still playing great. He's just, not on that like MVP pace that we know he can be. So Brunson is obviously picking up the slack, or perhaps, it's kind of more. Maybe it's perhaps more intentional. Hey, Luka, we need you to save yourself a little bit. For the long run of the season. Whatever the case, Brunson is taking advantage of the opportunity. And kind of as we just mentioned with Maxey, the minutes. Look at these minutes lately, especially. Basically, all of his high minute games of the season so far in these like past 4 or 5 games. He's obviously, playing very well, he's got a new coach, earning the coach's trust. And as a result, I think he's, maybe he's not going to keep his bender up, but he's going to be on the floor a lot. And, that always helps.
So he's, again, under 27% rostered here. So
that's a good call out.
So as we're getting further down on this list, I guess I can call a couple other guys. But Jordan Poole has been playing really good. I don't know. Again, you said you haven't really seen much Golden State, but this is a guy here who's been scoring significantly, 31, 26, 25, and 16 in the last 4 games here. His minutes, again, have been up. He's not really going to do too much exciting stuff in the rebounds, assists. He'll poke some steals every now and then. Low turnover numbers for the most part here, but he's been playing pretty well, and he's peaking up here at 62% rostered. Let me see. I do have Norman Powell here, but he's kind of peaked here with 75% rostered. Anything else that you need to call out here before we go to the next page?
I like the no, Poole's a great call out, and in fact, I've watched one Warriors game. It was the Warriors Hornets game, which I think was Poole's highest fantasy output of any of his games so far this season, and maybe even in his career. So, I think Jordan Poole is amazing based off of one game that I've seen him play. But I definitely flirted with him a lot last year, kind of as one of the last pieces off the bench,
Yep.
or one of the kind of a piece I would drop and pick up from time to time. So he has definitely improved this season. But yeah, I think he's a bit more boom or bust. And if he goes on a cold streak, which I think he maybe eventually could do, I just pay attention to that, and don't be afraid to cut bait on him, and then be wary of him again going forward if he is right on the waiver wire, and because he's going to get hot eventually. So
he's a guy that's probably gonna, especially like in a 10-man league, he's probably gonna bounce around every now and then. So just pick him up when you see. So like if I see Jordan Poole available on the waivers, and I see Golden State's got two games in a row in 2 days, I think I'm gonna try to just collect like 50 points out of those games. Anyways, I just changed it real quick because I kind of want to go over our watch list that I made real quick. And again, I hate giving out my fantasy goodness here, but when I look for players, I'm looking at the last 7 days. I'm going to filter by just average points the last 7 days here. And then usually I'm looking at like the full NBA. So like I'm going down, I'm looking at Jokic, and then I'm looking at percent rostered. And I'm just going down the list until my triggers get tripped. 56.4 does not, match these 99.9% players that I'm seeing here. So at the top of the list, we talked about Will Barton, Wendell Carter Jr. I know he's 75.5% roster, but I just wanted to shout out him real quick. And then here's some of the players that we talked about. We talked about Bobby Portis, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Jordan Poole. There's Norman Powell. Reggie Jackson, though, coming in here at 62%. I think Reggie and Eric Bledsoe have both been beneficial with the lack of Kawhi Leonard there. But then there's Nicholas Batum. I have to shout out Aiden Tobin. He's been harping the Nick Batum lately. So 2 Clippers here. Did you say you watched some Clippers recently?
Yes, I saw a good amount of the Clippers-Blazers game last night, and I feel like anytime I'm catching a Western Conference game late at night, it's either a Clippers game or a Blazers game. So I've definitely seen a little bit of the Clippers, and yeah, I think Aiden's spot on about Batum. He's essentially playing the Kawhi role. I mean, they don't really have a secondary wing behind George outside of Batum. So Batum is soaking up a healthy amount of minutes. I mean, he's so old, and he's maybe not so old, but he's older, and he's super, super fragile. I hate to say it, but the dude is made of glass. He's had a lot of really pretty extreme injuries in his career. So I think they'll keep the minutes low, but one thing Kyle always loves to call out is that the fantasy points per minute, and Batum is really kicking ass in that category so far, and even more so in the last 4 or 5 games. So pretty impressive stuff from this guy. If he can stay healthy this year, this is a guy that you're going to want to roster, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. And then so we just got did Reggie Jackson or Eric Bledsoe have a game the other night here? It looks like Reggie played pretty well, putting in 23 points last night. I don't know what Bledsoe did. But as we get further down the list, we have the man we trashed 2 weeks ago. That is Thad. We trashed him before the season even started when Matt Bain drafted him. But look what the young Thaddeus Young has done the last 5 games here. We owe apologies, or is this just what do we do with Thad Young here, dropping in 28.5, 35, 29.5, a 13.25, but then he gets a 31.75 here. So Thad Young, he trips the censors and he makes the list after we've ridiculed the Thad Young here. So I feel slightly ashamed for it, but Thad Young's playing good. The Spurs, what's cool too is he's got that rare triple eligibility. PF, SF, and center position. So anything on Thaddeus Young, I haven't really been able to watch too much Spurs, and when I do, my eyes are always on Dejounte. So Thad Young, we're sorry, but you are worth an ad right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as Thad Young is getting minutes, he's always – I think that was kind of the biggest knock going into this year because the Spurs are so young. I mean, they're trying to be competitive, but they also are trying to just play their young guys all sorts of minutes. And so I thought Thad Young might kind of fall to the fringes of playing time on the roster. And that's been the case for a lot of this season. But the last 5 games, he's getting playing time. He's getting minutes. I don't know if he was maybe injured a little bit or what. Maybe there was a little more of an under the radar injury going on with him. But if he's able to cross 20, 25 minutes a game, he's going to be, kind of a fringe. Even still, I wouldn't say he's a super. He tripped the sensors, but he kind of he trip is the right word. I don't think he cleared the sensors. I don't think he hopped over it or anything. So he's going to be useful, especially in 12 plus team leagues. But 10 or less, I'm not sure you have to be too concerned about him. But I would put him on your watch list for sure. He's a guy that if he gets minutes, he's really good at filling out the entire stat sheet. He's a better passer than anyone ever gives him credit for a big guy. He's really good at steals for a big guy. He's going to get you a couple blocks. He's a solid rebounder, and if he's getting minutes, he's getting points too. So Thad Young has some upside if he's in the rotation.
So it's a clear correlation to Jakob Poeltl being out here. It says that he's not going to return this week. So you have Thad Young at least for the next few games. Again, he's out with the health and safety protocols here. So as long as Poeltl's out, I do like Thad Young. They're kind of using him as a big. He's a small 5 at this point with Drew Eubanks. And Eubanks actually tripped my sensors as well. But since we got Aiden here, Aiden, you just missed it. We just covered your boy Nick Batum. He made the list. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. He is 9th on my list here. We just covered playing really good. We said some good things. Pick him up. He's only 24.5% rostered, so I just had to make sure you saw that. But yeah, we got the Batum stuff out of the way. We're on to Thaddeus Young, and then Andre Drummond. Here we go with Joel Embiid out for last few games. You see Drummond go nuclear, 52.75 and 53.25. He's had back-to-back 20-plus rebounds, 20 and 25, chipping in 17 and 14 points here. So the Drummond is here for a little bit. Joel Embiid, he's going to miss the next week or so, I think. Again, I can't remember the exact date, but I would imagine at least for the next few games here, the next 3-4 games, you're getting vintage Drummond numbers here, and he's 53.5% rostered. Unfortunately, I'm playing against him this week in a couple fantasy, so it's not fun. But he is a guy that can help you. Let's see here, Royce O'Neil.
Yeah, you just quickly, you talk about correlation. If Embiid is out, Andre Drummond immediately becomes a top 20 fantasy asset for every game he plays without Embiid. He's already done it multiple times this year. Just a super, super interesting fantasy piece.
Probably higher than top 20, man. He's still got it. What was your thought, I guess, on the finish of that?
No, that was it. It's just how many guys on the planet right now are, scoring less than 10 fantasy points if they're the backup, and then the second they turn into the starter, they're scoring over 50. He might be the list.
Frank Kaminsky. That's it. End of list. End of list.
That's a fun list. That's a list I like.
It's a nice little petite list. But as we get further down the list here, I do have Royce O'Neil tripping the sensors here. He's been just kind of doing what he's been doing all season, but he's had 3 or 4 nice, really good games here, peaking with the points, double-digit points. But he's going to contribute rebounds, assists, and the steals, the 3 and the 6 the last few games here, playing some sneaky minutes. Under 11% rostered, so he's widely available in most 10 and 12-man leagues. Again, we started the show off with Ricky Rubio. We just got to, drive this home. He's under 50% rostered. If you play in a savvier basketball league, he's probably already been scooped up right now, but just do your due diligence and check that out. Aiden's saying we got to go check out Josh Hart, and Josh Hart tripped my sensors. He's down the list a little bit down here, averaging about 25 points per game over the last 7 days, but his minutes, over 30 minutes in the last 5 games here. He had a nice big 22-point night 2 nights ago, putting up a high total here. John, can you tell us any good things about Josh Hart as he's a part of the Pelicans rotation now?
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what was going on with him to begin the year, but he was definitely hurt And then even when he was coming back, a little bit of a slow kind of return from the injury. But yeah, to your point, he's really hit his stride the last couple games. And I think, like, interestingly enough, not for like actual basketball performance and, like winning, but in terms of fantasy performance, missing Zion is like a tide that raises all the boats for these guys on the Pelicans. And I think Josh Hart is definitely a beneficiary of that too. Because Hart is a way better rebounder than average for his position, which is a thing that Zion does really well, and that kind of neuters some of Hart's fantasy upside when he's playing with Zion. And he also is just a really good finisher around the rim, which is another thing Zion kind of does all the time. So without Zion, guys like Hart, guys like Valanciunas, even maybe, those guys are probably the biggest beneficiaries, but I think they're, that's about all.
Well, you have, so I just, I filtered here to the New Orleans Pelicans, and this is the last 7 days. You got Valanciunas being the most useful asset. Josh Hart is the second best asset for the Pelicans, but Garrett Temple, he's under 1% rostered here. So if Robert Owens is watching the show in his 14-man league, here you go, Garrett Temple, for his last 4 games, putting up points here, 35 minutes, 26 minutes, 34, 23, coming in around almost 10 points a game, just tacking on some rebounds, assists. He does have streaks of steals and blocks. So if you play in bigger leagues, under 1% rostered, I'll shout out Garrett Temple. And I know John probably got to get out of here in a couple minutes, a minute or two. Any final thoughts before we say have a good evening?
You got the Pelicans up. I got to at least give my man, Jonas Valanciunas, a little shout out. He continues to, I don't know if he's still the number 1 center, but he continues to just be absolutely awesome. How long will it last? Until Zion comes back. I really believe that once Zion comes back, I'm sure Valanciunas will still be good, but he's not going to be, top 3 at his position anymore. So enjoy it while it lasts. Hopefully Zion keeps eating that Cajun if you're a Jonas Valanciunas owner.
Well said, my man. And he's not the 1, but he's the 2. So number 2 center over the last, over the season, at the moment. So, but that was fun. We'll let you get out of here, John. I'm going to stay on the show, and I'll kind of wrap things up. I'll go over the rest of my watch list, but we'll be back next Wednesday. We'll have Drake, and we'll get all the good things going. So thank you for hanging out. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take it easy, Kyle. Take it easy, everyone. Thanks again.
All right. Adios, dude.
Bye.
All right. So just solo here. I'll probably hang out for another 5-10 minutes. If you guys got questions, fire them up. Or otherwise, I was just going to I didn't do a watch list show this week. So I was going to kind of just go over my watch list. And there's a ton of players that are available here, averaging more than 20 fantasy points during the last 7 days. So we're saying, look at off night Davian Mitchell. Did he trip my senses? Let me do a Mitchell search real quick. Davian. So what do we got here from Mr. Mitchell? So he's about 6.4% rostered, and the minutes are starting to trend upwards here, it looks like. 19, 19, 29, 26, 26. So I like the fantasy output here too. He's starting to get a little bit more consistent with the scoring. You like to see that. And the rebounds and the assists, they kind of rotate most nights here, but I like seeing, anywhere between 5 and 8 total rebounds and assists per night. So this is a good call, Aiden. I did have him. He did trip the sensors on the watch list, so that's always good. He is down here on my watch list. But let me kind of just get back to the top. I'll start shouting out some players here. We left off on Zubox, Derrick Rose. Both those guys over 50% rostered here. But Sean Tate has been playing well of late. He's playing right now against Detroit. Probably gonna be a nice night. But the last 4 games before tonight, the minutes, over 30 minutes per game here, a couple 20-point performances, getting the rebounds, chipping an assist, and getting a steal almost every game here. So Sean Tate, only 10% rostered. He's starting to play well. Again, you got Tim Hardaway Jr. Up here. I know he's 65% rostered, but again, if you played 8 or 10-man leagues, he's been playing well. And then as we get down the list, Darius Basley, you guys remember him from last year? He's starting to play some good minutes and just filling out the scores this week. So 34, 20, 16, 21, a 41 in there. So it's not a super consistent guy, but just keep him on the watch list. You'll see what you can get there. We're seeing Gary Payton. Did Gary Payton make my list? He did make my list. He's right here. We'll get to him in just a second. But TJ McConnell continuing, he was a beast down the stretch last year, but the scoring has peaked the last few games, 18, 19, and 10 points. The rebounds, 7 and 7 the last couple games. You see 3 out of the last 4 nights, 30, 37, and 41 fantasy points here. So some good things here. He's under 42% rostered here. Daniel Tice, about 40% rostered. He's averaging about 27 points per game. And then here we go. Gary Payton the second. He's only 4.5% rostered. And let's see. He didn't have the greatest game 2 nights ago, but he had been playing really good the first part of the November month. 30.5, 33.75, 32.75. So consistently scoring here. His bad games are still kind of low, but if you play, again, in like 12 or 14-man leagues, this might be a guy that interests you. At least put him on the watch list. He has looked good when he's gotten the minutes. So if he's going to be hovering around 20 minutes per game, he's probably worth the look. If he's getting under 10, then we'll kind of let him go. Let's see. Yeah. Let me see what else we got here. Robert Covington, he's high owned, but he's playing well. Shake Milton has been a nice piece here, even with Tyrese Maxey playing as good as he's been. But man, the minutes have been up for Shake. 42, 22, 36, and 34. You see the scoring starting to round out here. The assists have been pretty high as well. So 3 out of 4 games, you see really nice totals for Shake Milton, only 11% rostered. Let's keep it moving. You got Kelly Olynyk here for the Detroit Pistons. It's kind of weird. I think Isaiah Stewart still starts, but for the most part, from what I've seen, is they use Olynyk almost just as much, if not more, than they use Stewart. So he did have a couple disappointing games in a row here, but for the most part, you see some 30s, a 40 or 2 every now and then. So this is a player that you can kind of be bouncing on and off your rosters. We talked about Josh Hart. Taj Gibson tripped my sensors here. I know it was only a 1-game sample, but he put up 31 minutes in this game, 7 points, 8 boards, 2 blocks, and an assist. Monitor his minutes going forward. You got Lamarcus Aldridge here. Yeah, with the Shake, it's been it's also the Embiid and the Harris minutes have been replaced by a handful of players, and Shake Milton's been beneficial for that. Eric Bledsoe made the list. Garrett Temple, we talked about him. Josh Giddy, for some reason, I think he should be more than 50% rostered. He has been just so consistent. Like I don't know why he's not more rostered here. The minutes are probably only going to go up as the season goes on. I know the scoring is going to be inconsistent, but the one thing that's going to be there is rebounds and assists almost every night, and then probably good for a steal or 2. And the blocks, that's been what's most amazing to me, is the blocks have been there, which is cool to see. But tons of guys here on the list. I'm just going to kind of keep reading the names down. You got KCP playing good. The Washington Wizards are playing good as a whole here. KCP's only 4% rostered. And you see, just look at the minutes, like 41, 30, 34, 26, 26. So I like players that are on the court. Usually they get a point per minute, and then they're on my roster. So check out KCP, under 5%. Blake Griffin, 12.6% rostered. He's averaging about 25 points per game over the last few nights. The minutes are peaking for Blake Griffin here. The rebounds and the scoring are also doing some good things as well. So you see a nice little run over the last 4 or 5 nights. And then Devin Vassell, one of my favorite players here. I do like watching the Spurs. I don't know why I have a soft spot for the Spurs, but anyways, we've been going on here for about 50 minutes. I'm going to let you guys get out of here for tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow night, we'll go live with the fantasy football show. We'll do start sits and just look at all the news and whatnot. So thank you again for your time. We'll see you guys next Wednesday night. Peace.